3 more witnesses will take the stand, and then the prosecution will rest its murder conspiracy case against Lori Vallow Daybell, the so-called Doomsday Mom accused of plotting her 4th husband's murder. New evidence coming in today as a detective reveals video of Lori buying flip-flops after Charles Vallow was shot and killed. And don't forget, video of her at Burger King, never calling 911. I'm Justin Lum, and we are on the record. The state of Arizona moving at a quick pace yet again. We have now completed testimony by 18 witnesses. 18. It's crazy to say that. We have 21 that will be called in total by prosecutor Trina Kay. Fox 10 investigator Justin Lum here, joined by Special Projects executive producer George Obi. And yet it was a busy day, even though we ended early. Looks like the pacing, that is very important, as well as the factor of Detective Nate Duncan being out sick, and he's going to be a very important witness as the lead detective in this homicide investigation into Charles Vallow's death. And he will be huge in bringing up text messages between Charles and Lori to, I assume, a Chad Daybell regarding the life insurance policy that she did not get, her Social Security benefits that she would get, regarding JJ's surviving benefits, and what happened to Charles as far as being the mother and caretaker. But cannot forget Cassandra Inclan's testimony today and how she basically had to go toe-to-toe with Lori Vallow Daybell, trying to poke holes in her story.
Yeah, the state now, with Detective Inclan, establishing Lori's demeanor, right? The detective who not only interviewed Lori, but also spoke with Tylee. They were in a car ride together to and from the station. There was there was a lot of time on the morning of that shooting that this detective spent with Lori and Tylee. And so that, I think, for the state's perspective, was key, that the jury could hear, look, this is a person they just met for the first time, but you have a witness such as Detective Inclan, who has obviously spent time with other witnesses in other cases. And so to hear her interpretation of what did you observe on that day, not just from the physical evidence of the crime scene, but more so, what did you observe in your interaction with Lori over that 3-4 hour span?
Yeah, and at the time, she doesn't even know that Lori has taken Charles's phone and has that with her. And there's a moment where she is not even sure that Lori knows that her husband is dead. She has to do this death notification. And so things aren't adding up, but it doesn't happen as fast as people may think, because obviously the people now, including us, have the full, a lot of the story, a lot of the evidence. So at this time, on the morning of July 11, 2019, Lori is described as nonchalant, chatty, etc. We've talked about this yesterday, and we saw the cross again continue. Lori Vallow Daybell trying to make it seem like she was not treated right in this case, and that she cooperated fully, as did her daughter. But I think that was a huge piece of this for Trina Kay to redirect and basically solidify that, there's a lot of things that Inclan and the whole crew for Chandler Police did not know. And this leads us to Ariel Werther, who can bring in facts, not just thoughts on psychology or emotions, but someone who has a timeline. Very, very intricate.
Right, because you have now, initially you had one crime, you had one case here, and that was the shooting of Charles. Now you have a separate case, and as Detective Werther kind of implied, this whole saga started to take another turn when Lori's stories weren't adding up. And then he comes in, like you said, with the data, with the evidence to show that some things were not adding up here. Her recollection, Lori's recollection of events that morning, were not matching with what the data was showing. And again, he would learn this later, right? But there were things that happened that morning that led him to be involved and him to take the next step to get some of that cell phone data from not only her phone, but Charles's phone, and then, of course, Alex's phone, who made the 911 call.
Let's take a listen to Detective Werther.
I will say that the device has clearly departed the scene well before the 911 call and does not return until after the 911 call. The distances make it entirely implausible that the device went all that way that quickly, plus the timestamps are logged prior to the event. And so again, I could see only two possible interpretations. Either the shooting happened much earlier than we were told, or the device and the person bearing it, which I understand to be Ms. Vallow, left well before the shooting occurred. I don't see a third option.
So this testimony is very technical, it's very dry when using that term a lot with certain witnesses, specifically detectives, but we are getting the play-by-play and the mapping of the phones being located, color-coded. Charles Vallow in red, Lori's phone in blue, Alex Cox's phone in green. We know he calls 911 about 45 minutes after Charles Vallow is shot and killed. Lori doesn't call 911 at all, and she's in multiple spots, right? And it's Burger King, and then Walgreens, and then the school.
Right. And
JJ school.
Right, JJ school. Now, keep in mind, Detective Werther has testified in Lori's other case in Idaho. So this presentation he's given before, this is all stuff that they've gone over extensively. But we have laid out. We know we've seen the video of her at the Burger King. What was new for us this morning was seeing her at the Walgreens, and seeing her kind of walk in, buy these flip-flops, and then leave. Again, the undertone in all of this is that she's doing all of this. Burger King, Walgreens, driving around, going to the school. All of this is happening within about an hour or so of her being witness to her husband being shot and then ultimately killed by her brother.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was an undertone in court today, and maybe I'm wrong. I know it was brought up, but the undertone with the jurors had to be that they know that she's doing all of this with her kid, right, with JJ, and moments earlier she was at the house and her husband was killed. And then of course they did play a little bit of her returning to the scene wearing the flip-flops, and you see the video. This is the Walgreens video.
Yeah, never before seen for
no
us.
we had not seen this in our FOIA request.
We've seen the Burger King video, yes, but this is, happening at 8:16 in the morning, July 11, 2019. And here's what the jurors know. They know that she would not be a beneficiary on the life insurance policy. They're kind of going back and forth on the timeline, but they know that a week after this is the second and final call to ban her life insurance, and she's upset because she's not the beneficiary, and she has a 7-year-old with autism and JJ that she has to take care of, and she's trying to figure out why Charles did this. Well, we know if you backtrack why Charles did this, because somebody had hacked into his policy, and that's why he changed the beneficiary. And we know that a month after this, she's going to go to the Social Security Administration, and she's going to apply for those benefits as a mother, and she's also going to apply for benefits for JJ as a survivor, being that his father is Charles. But this is just fascinating to see her at the register buying the flip-flops. And she does walk in, appear to be wearing something. But she says that she ran out barefoot.
She
at
did.
The house.
I got another piece of video from the day of the shooting. We've got multiple videos of her, whether it's surveillance video like this, whether it's body cam at the scene, whether it's interrogation. And I keep saying interrogation video, but we know that it was video from inside the Family Advocacy Center being interviewed by police the day of the shooting. So we have enough of her to, I think, set up what her demeanor was in all of this.
Yeah.
We brought this up on the panel at lunch. Great conversation about, does the jury pick up on that? Do they need an expert to reinforce what common sense people would know is, does that look like the woman, a woman who just witnessed her husband being shot and killed?
And is panicked about it, but she says she makes it seem normal to be calm. Even though detectives, they have to be calm in this situation, but she continues to do this in cross-examination where she, questions why she shouldn't be calm. And we're not saying that you have to be, hysterical or crying and sobbing and not able to move and function. But she is in actually not a bad mood. And I just think that the jury has seen this multiple times now with body camera video, the interview video, and now seeing her go around and do this. That is just, you want to be in the heads of these 14 jurors that are sitting in the box, because our panel of experts is like, they're like, are you kidding me right now?
It's a no-brainer for them, yeah. Well, and I've missed this, I think, throughout the whole thing, is when we're talking about her demeanor. It's one thing to look at her and go, well, is this Lori? Is this who Lori is? But we forget she's also a mother. Is this how a mother reacts to, the father of one of her children, if you will, being shot and killed, knowing that JJ no longer has a father, that Tylee lost a stepfather. Like, is this how a normal mother would react?
It's a patriarch.
Right. Even if
the
you're trying to
family.
put on a brave face and keep it together for your child, I don't see it. And I don't, as an adult, as a father, I just don't see it. And again, this was part of our conversation today at the lunch break with our panels. Would any normal parent react this way? Like, I just doesn't, whether you need an expert to prove that or not.
Like a psychologist. We talked about that with Kirk Nurmi, Jodi Arias' former attorney. Maybe you put an expert psychologist up there to talk about, why this isn't as unusual as people think. But I think human nature is to say, wow, that is concerning, to say the least, because you have this woman who does not work and does not provide for the kids. She's the caretaker. That's her role in the family at this time.
Right.
And she's definitely concerned when she knows that she's not getting the life insurance money. But at this point in time, at Walgreens, at Burger King, she thinks she's the beneficiary. She does not know.
Wait, and we heard that phone call. We heard both phone calls, right? Yesterday with
part 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean, you the second phone call was telling about. She just is almost annoyed, is putting it lightly, when the agent is explaining to her what's going on with the life insurance policy. Again, the jury, the 12 people that are going to decide her fate in this trial, I would be shocked if any of them were not moved or confused by what they heard today from the detective regarding not just her timeline but events, but then showing that video.
It's a lot of information. It's important, that very, very detailed timeline. And then Lori gets to cross-exam Detective Werther. And, he has the digital evidence, but he's not going through the text messages on Charles' device. But she's going back to this narrative that Charles is just not a good guy, and that he's an angry guy, and that he's, talking to different women and basically cheating on her. And even in January 2019, when she spoke to Gilbert Police, she told them that, he's upset because I caught him cheating. But even if he was cheating, she was also cheating. They were cheating on each other then at the same time. She was already in the affair with Chad Daybell.
Which the jury obviously doesn't know, right? Like, they have no idea. In theory, they have no idea.
But even a jury, I don't think that they would justify the shooting because he was a cheater.
Yeah.
So this is the conversation or the exchange in cross-exam where Lori basically ends up getting scolded by Judge Bresky.
And then on the next day, there was another date scheduled with a Jennifer Gilbert at 12 o'clock.
That sounds correct.
And then the next day, there was another date scheduled with a Juliet at 10 a.m.
And obviously trying to smear the victim.
All right, the objection sustained.
Detective, did you find searches for these dates for my husband back to...
Hold on,
If we can do a sidebar.
Sustained.
This is a different question,
no,
Your Honor.
Whether he went on dates or had dates scheduled is not relevant to this case. Ask another question. You can ask about the date of the person that testified the night before because that person was in here and had some relevant information. But other than that, any of these other questions are not relevant.
So this is at least the second time where Lori tries to go after Charles's character in some way by cross-examination. Trina K steps up and puts an end to that. Judge Bresky agrees and says, you can't do that. You can't ask in this way. Now, you can refer back to the Nancy Jo Hancock testimony, the woman who went on the date with Charles Vallow the night before. But to just bring up these women that people don't know, she's bringing up names of people.
Yeah.
And she has not laid any foundation, and she's asking about dates that were planned by Charles.
The timing of it seems weird. I feel like that she's done this a few times, like you mentioned. The timing of when she's doing this, I just don't see. The judge has obviously kind of alluded to that, but if you're the jury, you're going to pick up on that too, right? Like, where's this coming from? Why now? What does that detective have to do with text messages that Charles had with women? We already had Nancy Jo on the stand. You've already established that he's clearly dating while he's still technically married.
Yeah, the jury knows that.
Right.
That he was talking. Nancy Jo had even said that he talked to her about other women that he was speaking to, even ones that were trying to scam him, basically catfishing him.
And
he
I-
was open about it.
Yeah, and I think the last thing you want to imply to the jury is that he was cheating and he deserved to be shot and killed. Is that really the MO
Yeah.
that you want for this? I don't. That's not a door you want open right now.
Yeah, so the jury has seen that, and now we have 3 more witnesses to go, including both the current lead detective on this case, Nate Duncan, and then Nate Moffat, who before he was promoted, he was the lead case agent on this. So 3 more in total, and then the state could rest its case maybe by the end of tomorrow. It all dependent on how Duncan is feeling, if he's up to testifying. But I think by the end of this week, I think by Thursdays, we're now back on that 10:30 to 4:30 schedule. There's ample time there for the state to rest its case. And then the big question everybody wants to know is, what is Lori Vallow Daybell's defense? She's already messed up the whole subpoenaing witnesses and may have none to call. She doesn't have an expert witness. She doesn't have anyone.
Yeah, and that's on our YouTube page as well. We put up that pretrial hearing this morning before court got underway. Yeah, we're close. We are definitely close. I'll be fascinated to know again whether she takes the stand, but also the cross exam. Trina Kay, the prosecutor for the state, has to be salivating at this idea that she gets an opportunity to do what other attorneys in other states have not been able to do, and that is get Lori on the stand.
And the cross-examination depends on what are the questions Lori would write out for herself if she does take the stand, for her counsel to ask. What are those questions? I think the questions are going to go back to going after Charles in the narrative that she's trying to sell on who he was, and how she's going to say that she was being cheated on. The threatening messages, she keeps bringing up that narrative of threatening texts, intimidation, physical arguments that involve Tylee Ryan. Those are the questions that she's going to lay out. And, basically Trina Kay will have to ask questions and cross-examine to dismiss all that and just wipe that out for the jury. And if she takes enough time, the jury could forget a lot about what has already been presented right now. You assume they're taking notes.
Right. It's been 2 weeks. We know how long it feels it's been in real time, but actuality, it's been barely a week and a half now.
Yeah.
But she will be, if you think about it, and if she's the only witness she has, she will be the last person to take the stand in this entire case. So the jury will have that to kind of resonate on and sit on, and they'll have Trina Kay's cross-examination, really. There might be a redirect from paralegal, but ultimately Lori's, if things go the way they're supposed to, then Lori takes the stand. She's the last witness of this entire trial. I'm sure the jury, that will not be lost on the jury.
And that's what we have to figure out, because we haven't seen much of the 2 public defenders that are now counsel. What is their role in the questioning if she testifies? I would assume that they're put up there, and the paralegal is keeping track of documents and questions or helping her. She's right next to her. Basically, she's Lori's assistant. That's what the paralegal is. And the counsel, these lawyers that are not acting as her attorney are sitting back and just watching, and they have probably they've had a lot of time to just, wow, this is overwhelming evidence, but they're just not in the role. They don't have the power and leverage to do anything. So we'll see what happens, or she could just not testify and wait for closing arguments. And
Right,
then
they
send
tell her no,
message there.
don't do it. It's not going to help you in any way.
Yeah. All right, so day 7, tomorrow morning, in the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. This is On the Record. We'll see you soon.